The Galactic Concordat had never seen anything like humans before. When the ship called Celestial Horizon discovered Earth in 2157, Captain Zix Vorel was confused by humans. They wanted peace, but were ready for war. They worked together, but also loved their freedom. They were a puzzle. What really surprised the aliens was how humans used technology. Humans didn't have the most advanced tools, but they knew how to use what they had in clever ways. Other races in the galaxy built beautiful, perfect machines for specific jobs. Humans built things that worked even if they looked messy. This difference seemed small until the day the Krell attacked. The Krell were aggressive aliens from the edge of the galaxy. They ambushed the ships that were traveling back from Earth. After the first meeting between species, the human ship, UNS Defiant, was caught in the middle of the fight. Captain Richard Harmon ordered his crew to battle stations. During the fight, the Celestial Horizon was hit badly. The ship's engines were damaged and failing. All alien races in the Concordat followed the same rule when a ship was damaged this badly: abandon ship and blow it up so enemies couldn't steal the technology. But the humans did something no one expected. While enemy weapons were still firing at them, Lieutenant Lisa Owens, a human engineer working on the alien ship, asked if she could try to fix the engines. Not after the battle, not in a safe repair dock, but right now during the fight. "You want to do what?" Captain Zix Vorel asked. The ship shook as another blast hit it. "We can fix it," Lisa said, already picking up tools. "Just keep us alive." For 15 minutes. The aliens watched with wide eyes as Lisa led 3 other humans into the damaged part of the ship. The humans wore only light protection suits. They carried regular tools and some materials that weren't even meant to be used on the ship's engines. The Krell thought the damaged ship would be easy to destroy. They were shocked when the Celestial Horizon suddenly moved again. The humans had fixed the engines enough to work. Not perfectly, but enough to fly and fight. By the time the battle ended and the Krell ships ran away, the aliens of the Concordat had seen something they never imagined. Humans didn't treat technology as something perfect that couldn't be changed. They saw it as something they could fix, change, and improve. Even in the middle of a battle. The galaxy would never be the same. Lisa's team had broken every rule about ship repair. In all recorded history of the Concordat, no one had ever attempted to fix a major system during active combat. Ships were delicate, complex machines that required precise tools, controlled environments, and careful procedures. Captain Zix Vorel called Lisa to his command room after the battle. His blue skin looked pale, and his 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Lieutenant Owens," he said, "what you did today goes against all our protocols." Lisa stood straight, her expression calm. "With respect, Captain, on Earth we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When there's no other choice, you make do with what you have." The captain's translator processed this and he tilted his head. "But the risk, one mistake could have destroyed the engine core completely." "Yes," Lisa admitted. "But doing nothing would have definitely resulted in losing the ship. A small chance of success is better than guaranteed failure." Word of what happened spread quickly through the surviving ships. Alien engineers requested to see the repairs Lisa's team had made. What they found shocked them even more than the fact that the repairs had been done during battle. The humans had used cooling pipes from food storage units to replace damaged coolant lines in the engine. They had rewired control systems using communication cables. They had even used metal plating from crew quarters to patch holes in the engine housing. "This is not how it was designed," said Engineer Kreth, a Valerian specialist who had spent 80 years studying propulsion systems. "No," agreed Frank Cooper, one of the humans who had helped Lisa. "But it works. Sometimes ugly and working is better than beautiful and broken." Days later, at the Concordat Defense Base, military leaders from 12 species gathered to discuss what had happened. Some were horrified by the human approach, calling it reckless and dangerous. Others were fascinated and wanted to learn more. Admiral Ben Parker, the highest-ranking human in the meeting, listened to the debate with patience. When asked to explain the human perspective, he stood slowly. "For most of our history," he said, "humans fought wars with limited resources. We couldn't always get new tanks or planes or ships when old ones broke. We had to fix them, often under fire, with whatever materials we had on hand. He pulled up images from human history, mechanics, repairing aircraft during World War II, tank crews fixing treads while under enemy fire, sailors patching holes in ships during storms. What Lieutenant Owens and her team did was nothing new for humans. It's in our blood. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. The alien leaders were quiet for a long moment. Then Grand Marshal Zur of the Tellarite Defense Force spoke. If the Krell return, and I believe they will, this human approach could change everything. Our tradition says a damaged ship retreats for proper repairs. This means we lose fighting units in the middle of battle. But if we could repair and continue fighting, it would give us a significant tactical advantage, finished Captain Zix Vorel. And based on how surprised the Krell were today, they have the same repair philosophy as we do. They won't expect ships to recover during battle. Within a week, the Concordat High Command made an unprecedented decision. They requested that human engineers be assigned to every major Concordat vessel. The engineers would teach alien crews how to make emergency repairs during combat. Some conservative alien leaders protested, saying it would compromise the integrity of their beautiful, perfect ships, but most saw the advantage of the human way. Lisa Owens became the first instructor at the hastily created Joint Emergency Repair Academy. On the first day of training, she looked at the room full of alien engineers, all watching her with doubt, curiosity, or confusion. Today, she said with a smile, we're going to learn that perfect is the enemy of good enough, and good enough keeps you alive when perfect isn't an option. The galaxy would never approach warfare the same way again. The simple human concept of fixing things under fire would change everything. And in the darkness of space, the Krell were already planning their next attack, unaware that when they returned, they would face an enemy that could do what they thought was impossible. 6 months had passed since the first battle with the Krell. The Galactic Concordat was still trying to understand what the humans had shown them. Many alien species had asked for human engineers to help on their ships. Small groups of human engineers were now working on different ships across the Concordat fleet. Senior engineer Alan Miller was sent to work on the Valerian ship called Immutable Doctrine. Chief Technical Director Solaris was not happy about this. The Valerians liked everything to be perfect and done in the exact right way. They did not like how humans made things up as they went along. Engineer Miller, Solaris said when they first met. He was very tall and thin, looking down at the human. Our systems are very precise. Each part has one job and must be taken care of in the exact right way. Alan nodded politely. I understand, Director. I'm here to learn as much as to teach. The Krell, feeling brave after their first attack had few consequences, attacked again. This time they targeted a Concordat outpost near the Cygnus arm of the galaxy. The Immutable Doctrine was one of the first ships to respond. During the fight, some Krell soldiers got onto the ship. They damaged the main power system before they were driven off. With the main power cut off from important systems, the big ship was stuck and couldn't move. We must follow the rules, Solaris said with a grim face. We have to go back to a repair station. We cannot fix this without replacing the whole system. Alan looked at the damage reports and shook his head. We don't need to replace everything. We can go around the damaged parts. That is not possible, Solaris said firmly. The system must work as one complete unit. But as more Krell ships appeared on the screens, Captain Nevarel made a desperate choice. Engineer Miller, you have permission to try your bypass. What happened next amazed the Valerian crew. Alan organized teams of both humans and aliens. He created a makeshift power hub using parts from less important systems. He made new power paths that went completely around the damaged network. This is not following any proper design, Solaris whispered, watching as the lights came back on and weapon systems started working. That's kind of the point, Alan replied with a smile. Sometimes you have to work with what you have, not what you're supposed to have. The Immutable Doctrine not only survived but managed to disable 2 Krell ships despite its damage. Word spread quickly through the Concordat. Humans didn't just fix ships during battle. They reinvented them. After the battle, engineers from 5 different species crowded around the makeshift power system Alan and his team had built. They took pictures and made notes, asking endless questions about how the humans had decided what to do. "I don't understand," said junior engineer Thrix, a young Valerian who had helped with the repairs. "There is no manual for this. How did you know it would work?" Alan showed them the rough sketches he had made during the crisis. "We start with basic principles. Electricity needs a path. If the original path is broken, make a new one." "But the power regulators," Solaris pointed out. "You used food preparation units to replace them. They're not designed for this much power." "True," Alan agreed. "But their basic function is the same: control energy flow. We just had to adjust them to handle more." Captain Neverell called a meeting of all department heads that evening. The mood was mixed, pride in their victory, but confusion about the methods used. "The human approach troubles me," said Weapons Director Terrell. "It is chaotic, unpredictable." "War is chaotic," replied the captain. "Perhaps we have been too rigid in our thinking." Alan was invited to speak. He stood before the tall aliens, feeling small but confident. "In human history," he explained, "we rarely had the luxury of perfect conditions or ideal equipment. We had to use creativity. A soldier might fix a gun with bootlaces. A pilot might patch a fuel line with chewing gum. These aren't permanent fixes, but they keep you in the fight." Security Chief Malin leaned forward. "But surely once you developed advanced technology, you created proper procedures?" Alan smiled. "We created guidelines, not rules. The difference is important. Rules tell you exactly what to do. Guidelines help you think about the problem." Over the next few weeks, the Valerian crew began to change. They started keeping spare parts that could serve multiple purposes. Engineers practiced making repairs with limited tools. Some even began carrying personal multi-tools, something only humans had done before. The biggest change came in an unexpected way. Director Solaris, who had been most resistant to the human methods, approached Alan one day in the mess hall. "I have been studying human engineering history," he said, sitting down across from Alan. "I found something interesting. Your species had a concept called field expedient repairs long before you reached space." Alan nodded. "For thousands of years." "Why did none of the concordate species develop this approach?" Solaris asked, genuinely curious. Alan thought for a moment. "Maybe because you all developed in more stable ways. Earth has always been chaotic. Different countries, wars, limited resources. We had to adapt constantly." "A difficult path to advancement," Solaris noted. "But it taught us valuable lessons," Alan replied. "Perfect solutions often aren't possible. Good enough solutions keep you alive." When the immutable doctrine returned, to the main concordate fleet, it was called the ship that should not function. Engineers from across the galaxy requested tours of the makeshift systems. Many were shocked by the ugliness of the repairs, but none could argue with the results. Admiral Jovak of the Concordate Defense Council visited personally. After seeing the bypass system, he turned to Captain Neverell. "How long will it take to replace this with proper systems?" he asked. The captain glanced at Alan before answering. "We've decided to keep some of the human modifications. They're more flexible than our original design." This statement sent shockwaves through the fleet. The Valerians, known for their dedication to design purity, were voluntarily keeping ugly human repairs. Word spread beyond the military. Civilian ships began requesting human engineers as consultants. Spacecraft designers started incorporating what they called adaptive sections, areas designed to be modified in emergencies. 1 month later, the Concordate High Command issued a new directive. All ships were to implement repair flexibility protocols based on human methods. Training programs were established. Engineering teams were reorganized to include at least one human specialist. The Krell, monitoring Concordate communications, could not understand this new development. Their intelligence analysts were baffled by reports of damaged ships remaining in battle. "How can this be?" demanded Krell Fleet Commander Vex Thu. "Their power core was hit directly. They should have Been destroyed or retreated. The humans have changed things, his intelligence officer replied. They do not follow normal procedures, the commander hissed softly. Then we must change our approach as well. The next attack will target these human engineers first. Throughout the Concordat, humans were no longer seen as technological primitives. They were now valued for something beyond advanced technology, their unique relationship with technology itself. As Alan told his alien colleagues, any species can build a perfect machine. The real skill is keeping it running when it's no longer perfect. 1 year after the first battle with the Krell, the United Nations Space Command created a new special group that would change space warfare forever. They called it the Emergency Vessel Repair Corps, or EVR Corps for short. Most engineers focused on fixing ships between battles when it was safe. But the EVR Corps was different. They specialized in fixing ships during battles, while enemy weapons were still firing. No other species had seriously tried this before. They all thought it was too dangerous and impossible to do. Commander Susan Hayes was chosen to lead this new group. She had years of experience fixing machines in dangerous places on Earth. Her first challenge was teaching others how to do something that no one had formally taught before. We need people who can think creatively when everything is going wrong, she explained to Admiral William Porter during a meeting. People who see rules as suggestions and see broken ships as puzzles to solve. The Admiral frowned. That sounds dangerously undisciplined, Commander. Susan smiled. With respect, sir. Sometimes discipline isn't about following the rules. Sometimes it's about having the strength to create new solutions when the rules don't work anymore. The EVR Corps got their first big test during the Battle of Proxima Centauri. A Concordat defense fleet was fighting hard against a Krell attack force. 3 human repair ships went with the fleet. These were cargo ships that had been changed to carry lots of repair parts, and small ships that could take repair teams to damaged vessels. During the battle, the Tellarite ship, Unwavering Logic, was hit badly. Its bridge and control systems were destroyed. A 5-person EVR team led by Lieutenant Paul Martinez went to help during the active battle. They used a mix of Tellarite spare parts, human-made universal connectors, and parts taken from already destroyed sections of the ship. They built a new control center in the ship's dining room. The ship was back in the fight in less than an hour. By the end of the battle, the EVR Corps had made emergency repairs on 14 different ships from 7 species. These ships stayed in the fight when they would normally have had to leave. How is this possible? Asked General Kovash of the Andorian Guard. He was watching videos of humans in light protective suits welding new parts onto the outside of a ship while energy weapons fired all around them. We've been fixing things under fire since our first tribal conflicts, explained Susan. From horse carts to tanks to planes to spaceships, the basic idea hasn't changed. If it breaks, you fix it, no matter what the enemy is doing. The aliens began to understand that humans hadn't created a new tactic. They had taken a very old idea and applied it to space warfare. The concept of the battlefield mechanic was as old as human conflict itself. After the battle, Commander Hayes received many messages from Concordat ship captains. They all wanted EVR teams assigned to their vessels. The idea of continuing to fight after taking damage was revolutionary to them. We can't provide enough teams for every ship, Susan told her staff. But we can train their crews in our methods. The EVR Corps started training programs for alien engineers. At first, many aliens struggled with the human approach. They were used to following detailed procedures with specialized tools. The human way of improvising solutions with whatever was available seemed wrong to them. You must understand, said instructor Greg Nelson to a class of alien engineers. In battle, you won't have the right tools or the right parts. You'll have to use what's available. He demonstrated by repairing a damaged power relay using parts from a food processor and pieces of a chair. This is not proper, said a Valerian engineer. No, Greg agreed. But it works, and in battle, working is all that matters. Gradually, the aliens began to understand. Some even showed natural talent for the human approach. A young Arcturian named Ziv became known for his creative solutions, earning the nickname the Magician from his human teachers. On many ships, Crews began creating what they called repair kits, collections of basic materials that could be used for many different purposes. They practiced making fast repairs in difficult conditions. Some ships even ran drills where they would turn off the lights in artificial gravity, while engineers tried to fix systems. Admiral Porter visited the EVR Corps Training Center 3 months after it opened. He watched as mixed teams of humans and aliens ran through repair simulations. "I was skeptical about this program," he told Commander Hayes. "But the results speak for themselves. The Krell have lost their advantage." Susan nodded. "The real victory isn't just that we can repair ships during battle. It's that we've changed how the Concordat thinks about technology. They're no longer afraid to modify and adapt their systems." The impact of the EVR Corps went beyond just repairs. Ship designers began to change how they built new vessels. They made systems easier to access and repair. They included backup systems that could be connected in different ways. Some even added special repair corridors that engineers could use to reach damaged areas quickly. During the Battle of Epsilon Eridani, the human approach proved its worth again. The Concordat cruiser, Unyielding Truth, was hit by 3 Krell torpedoes. In the past, such damage would have meant certain destruction, but the ship had been modified with human repair principles in mind. The damage control team, led by a human EVR advisor named Linda Perry, quickly isolated the damaged sections. They rerouted power through emergency systems. They used parts from non-essential systems to repair weapons and engines. Not only did the Unyielding Truth survive, it managed to destroy a Krell destroyer before the battle ended. "It's not just about the physical repairs," Linda explained later. "It's about the mindset. Aliens were taught that ships must work exactly as designed. Humans know that good enough is sometimes better than perfect." Word of the EVR Corps' success spread beyond the military. Civilian ships began adopting human repair techniques. Transport companies found they could save money by repairing systems rather than replacing them. Exploration vessels could travel farther knowing they could fix problems without returning to base. 6 months after the EVR Corps was formed, it had grown from 50 members to over 5,000, with training centers on 12 different worlds. Humans made up less than half of the Corps now. Aliens who had embraced the human approach were joining in growing numbers. The Krell were watching these developments with growing concern. Their strategy had always been to damage Concordat ships, enough to force them to retreat. Now damaged ships were staying in battle, being repaired even as the fight continued. "These humans have changed everything," said Fleet Commander Vexthu to his war council. "We must adapt our strategy." The Krell began developing new weapons designed specifically to target repair teams. They studied human repair techniques to find weaknesses. Their next attack would focus on eliminating this new advantage. But the humans were already developing new approaches, new techniques, new tools. The race between repair and destruction had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the war entered its second year, the Krell began to change how they fought. They had studied the human repair teams and understood the advantage they gave to the Concordat forces. During the Battle of Tau Ceti, the Krell tried a new approach. They specifically targeted human repair teams and vessels. They had identified the EVR Corps as a major threat, perhaps even more dangerous than the actual fighting ships. The repair ship UNS Resurrection was the first victim of this new strategy. 3 Krell destroyers broke away from the main battle to attack it. The ship was destroyed along with all the people on board. Major Jack Wilson, second in command of the EVR Corps' 3rd Division, now faced a difficult problem. The repair teams needed to continue their work, but they had suddenly become high-priority targets. "They're adapting to us," he told his team leaders during an emergency meeting, "which means we need to adapt faster." The solution came from an unexpected person. Lieutenant Kate Reynolds, who used to work as a salvage operator in the asteroid belt, suggested a complete change in how they operated. "We're too easy to see," she explained. "Big repair ships, standard methods, predictable responses. We need to be more like guerrilla mechanics." Under Kate's guidance, the EVR Corps spread out their resources. Instead of using dedicated repair ships, They distributed smaller repair teams across all combat ships. They developed stealth work pods that could hide their energy signatures. They created fake repair signals to draw enemy fire away from real work sites. The most extreme change was the creation of repair hives, clusters of what looked like debris and destroyed ship parts that actually contained hidden repair facilities and personnel scattered throughout battle zones. During the Battle of Epsilon Indi, the Krell flagship launched a direct attack on what they thought was a major repair operation. They found only empty decoys. Meanwhile, humans and their alien students worked from hidden locations, keeping the Concordate fleet working despite heavy damage. Humans are like viruses, the Krell commander said to his second-in-command, as another supposedly crippled Concordate vessel rejoined the battle. They hide, they adapt, they multiply, and they change everything they touch. He didn't mean it as a compliment, but across the Concordate, species who had once thought humans were technologically primitive began to recognize a different kind of advancement. Not in the technology itself, but in how it was used, maintained, and reimagined in the most extreme situations. After the battle, Major Wilson called Kate to his office on the command carrier Resilient. "Your strategy worked," he said. "The Krell wasted resources attacking decoys while our real teams kept working." Kate nodded. "The key is unpredictability. We need to keep changing our methods so they can't develop a counter-strategy." "I'm promoting you to captain," Jack said, "and putting you in charge of developing new repair methodologies." Under Captain Reynolds' leadership, the EVR Corps continued to evolve. They created new tools designed specifically for combat repairs. One popular invention was the Universal Adapter, a device that could connect almost any two systems together, even if they weren't designed to work together. They also developed new materials that could withstand battle conditions. Quick Seal was a foam that hardened in seconds when exposed to vacuum, allowing fast repairs to hull breaches. FlexWire could connect almost any two electrical systems, automatically adjusting power flow. But the most important developments weren't in tools or materials, but in training and mindset. The EVR Corps developed new ways to think about repairs. Traditional engineers see ships as fixed systems that must work a certain way, Kate explained to a class of new recruits. "We see ships as collections of resources that can be reconfigured as needed." She demonstrated by taking apart a standard food synthesizer and using its components to repair a damaged shield generator. "Everything on a ship can be repurposed," she told them. "Your job is to see the potential in every component." The aliens in the class were amazed. In their cultures, equipment had specific purposes and was never used for anything else. The human approach opened new possibilities. The Krell continued to adapt their tactics. They developed weapons designed to disrupt repair operations, including special radiation bombs that made areas dangerous for repair teams. They trained boarding parties to target repair facilities on Concordate ships. But for every Krell adaptation, the humans found a counter. When radiation bombs made areas unsafe, they developed remote repair drones that could work in hazardous conditions. When boarding parties targeted repair facilities, they stopped having central repair areas and instead spread resources throughout the ship. 6 months after the Krell began targeting repair operations, they discovered another problem. It wasn't just humans doing repairs anymore. Aliens had learned human methods and were now just as effective. During the Battle of Procyon, a Krell cruiser disabled the Andorian vessel Swift Justice, expecting it to withdraw from battle. Instead, an Andorian repair team, trained by the EVR, Corps but containing no humans, restored the ship's weapons in minutes. "They've infected other species with their methods," Fleet Commander Vexthu hissed in frustration. "It's spreading like a disease." Across the Concordate, repair techniques had indeed spread. Aliens who had once relied on humans were now developing their own approaches, combining human ingenuity with their own unique abilities. The Tellarites, with their natural strength, excelled at heavy structural repairs. The Arcturians, with their multiple limbs, could work on several systems at once. The Valerians, with their perfect memory, could recreate complex systems without reference materials. Engineers began to be valued as highly as weapons officers on warships. Crews that once would have abandoned damaged vessels now fought to save them. The psychological impact was significant. Knowing that serious damage wasn't a death sentence made crews more confident and determined. In response to the changing nature of space combat, the Concordat established the Integrated Engineering Academy. This new school brought together repair techniques from all species, creating a new unified approach to battlefield engineering. The textbook for first-year students began with words that would have been unthinkable before humans joined the galactic community. A ship's design is merely a starting point. In battle, a ship becomes what it needs to be. The Krell War Council met in their heavily fortified base beyond the rim. Reports from all fronts showed the same pattern: Concordat ships, surviving damage that should have destroyed them, returning to battle after seemingly fatal hits. "This cannot continue," said Vex Thu. "We must find a new approach." His chief strategist stepped forward. "We have analyzed all battles involving repair operations. There is one consistent vulnerability." "Tell me," Vex Thu demanded. "Communications. The repair teams need to coordinate their efforts. If we can disrupt their ability to communicate, we can cripple their repair capabilities." Vex Thu nodded slowly. "Prepare a new weapon, one that targets communication systems specifically." As the Krell planned their next move, the EVR Corps continued to grow and evolve. What had started as a small group of human engineers had become a galaxy-wide movement, changing not just how ships were repaired, but how they were designed, built, and operated. Kate Reynolds, looking at the latest class of graduates, a mix of humans and aliens, felt a sense of pride. "We're not just teaching them to fix ships," she told Major Wilson. "We're teaching them to see possibilities where others see only problems." The galaxy had changed forever, and the next phase of the war was about to begin. The war with the Krell did not end with one big final battle. Instead, the Krell slowly pulled back their forces. They realized they were fighting a war they could not win. The Concordat ships could keep fighting indefinitely through continuous field repairs. 3 years after their first attack, the Krell Armada retreated beyond the outer rim of the galaxy. The Galactic Concordat was left to think about how space warfare had completely changed. At the Concordat Strategic Academy on Arcturus IV, Fleet Admiral Jane Foster, now the human representative to the Concordat High Command, spoke to a mixed class of alien and human officer candidates. "Before humans joined the galactic community," she began, "spacecraft were seen as almost magical in how complex they were. Damaged ships left battles. Repairs happened in special facilities by engineers who followed exact procedures. The idea of rebuilding a hyperdrive with spare parts while under enemy fire was thought to be impossible." She pointed out the window, where a massive space station was being built, the first Concordat Joint Repair and Engineering Academy. What humans brought to the galaxy wasn't better technology or more powerful weapons. What we brought was a completely different relationship with technology itself. We showed that ships aren't fixed objects. They're ongoing projects, always changing and adapting. A young Valerian officer raised his hand. "Admiral, my species has been building starships for 10,000 years. How did we miss this approach?" Jane smiled. "Because you had the luxury of stability. Earth's history is full of conflict and limited resources. We had to adapt to survive." After the lecture, Zix Vorel, now a senior teacher at the academy, and one of the few who had seen the very first human battlefield repair, talked with Admiral Foster. "I've studied your history," the alien said. "Your species spent thousands of years fixing things during conflicts: horse carts, sailing ships, tanks, airplanes. Yet none of us made that mental leap to doing the same with starships." Jane smiled. "Sometimes the most revolutionary ideas are the oldest ones applied in new ways." Across the galaxy, the impact of human repair methods went far beyond military uses. Civilian ships began to include modular designs that could be easily modified and fixed. Shipyards developed standard components that could be adapted for many purposes. Engineering became less about maintaining perfect systems and more about creating systems that could be fixed when they broke. The biggest change, however, was in how species thought about technology. Species that had viewed technology as something to be used exactly as designed began to see it as something they could change, a starting point rather than a finished product. In the main hall of the Concordat Hall of Innovation on Earth, a simple display attracted visitors from across the galaxy. It contained only a few objects: a badly damaged hull plate, some improvised tools, and a handwritten note from Lisa Owens from that first desperate repair during first contact. The note read simply, "Of course we can fix it. We're human. It's what we do." 5 years after the end of the Krell War, human repair methods had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Ships were now designed with repair in mind. Engineers were trained to improvise solutions. The rigid thinking that had limited alien approaches to technology was fading away. But the most surprising development came from an unexpected source. A Krell defector, a former engineer named Vex Carr, requested asylum in Concordat space. When questioned about why he had left his people, his answer surprised everyone. "The rigid thinking of the Krell High Command doomed us," he explained. "I saw the human approach to technology. I saw how it allowed for adaptation and growth. I wanted to learn this approach, but such thinking is forbidden among the Krell." Vexcar revealed that a split had formed in Krell society. The younger generation was secretly adopting human repair methods, seeing them as the key to future advancement. The older leaders saw these methods as dangerous and tried to suppress them. "The Krell will return one day," Vexcar warned. "But they will be different. They are learning from humans, just as the Concordat did." 10 years after first contact, Admiral Jane Foster stood on the bridge of the UNS Innovation, the newest flagship of the human fleet. Unlike the ships that came before it, the Innovation was designed from the beginning with human repair philosophy in mind. Every system had multiple access points. Components could serve more than one purpose. Repair corridors ran throughout the ship. There were no specialized tools. Everything was designed to be fixed with basic equipment. "This ship represents the next evolution in our approach," Jane told the visiting Concordat dignitaries. "It's not just about fixing things when they break anymore. It's about designing things so they can be fixed, modified, and improved on the fly." An alien ambassador looked confused. "But if you design it properly in the first place, why would you need to modify it?" Jane smiled. "Because circumstances change. Missions change. Threats change. A ship that can't adapt is obsolete the moment it faces something unexpected." This philosophy spread beyond ships to all aspects of Concordat technology. Buildings, vehicles, even everyday devices were now designed with modification in mind. The concept of final design was replaced with current iteration. 20 years after humans first demonstrated battlefield repairs to an astonished galaxy, a new generation was growing up with these ideas as common knowledge. Young engineers couldn't imagine a time when ships were abandoned because of battle, damage. The stories of the first EVR Corps members were taught in schools across the galaxy. In the Concordat Historical Archives, researchers preserved the records of this revolutionary change. The simple idea that had transformed a galaxy had roots deep in human history: the battlefield mechanic, the emergency repair, the improvised solution. At the graduation ceremony for the Concordat Joint Engineering Academy, an elderly Lisa Owens, now retired but still revered as the first human to perform battlefield repairs in space, addressed the new engineers. "What we taught the galaxy wasn't a technique," she told them. "It was a mindset. The belief that with enough ingenuity, almost anything can be fixed. The understanding that perfect solutions aren't always possible, but good enough solutions keep you alive." She looked out at the faces of a dozen different species, all united by this shared philosophy. The real legacy of human repairs isn't just in how we fix our ships, it's in how we approach problems. We don't accept failure. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. And in the distant reaches of space, the Krell watched and learned, knowing that when they eventually returned, they would face a galaxy transformed by the human approach to the impossible. The galaxy was never the same after watching humans repair ships during battle. It wasn't just warfare that changed, It was the fundamental relationship between intelligent beings and the technology they created. What had started as a desperate act during a surprise attack had become the foundation of a new technological philosophy that would shape galactic development for centuries to come, all because humans, when faced with the impossible, simply grabbed their tools and got to work.